Hello everybody, welcome again to our coronavirus quarantine cooking class at Now You're Cooking in downtown Bath, Maine. First things first, last week we offered up a set of chopsticks and two little side dishes for anybody that sent in a picture of their finished product. We got a couple of responses, not too many, but I'm going to pull the winner right now. And the winner is Meg Barker. Congratulations, Meg. Let us know when you want to pick these up. You can pick them up tomorrow. Thank you, everybody who did send in pictures. We're hoping for a few more people this week. And we're going to be giving away one of my very favorite gadgets. This is a spoonula, technically. It's all one piece, so when it doesn't get food in between the handle and the bottom, it can go in the dishwasher. You can use it as a flat spatula, but it's also great for spooning stuff out. So anybody who wants to enter to win this, send us a picture of your mac and cheese when it's finished tonight, and we will be happy to put you in the running for that. And we're going to draw the winner next Thursday, so you have a week to do this. So hopefully you will join us in that. Just briefly, tonight we're using some pasta from Montebello. We get it from Stonewall Kitchen. It's imported from Italy. We also do sell the Raven's Nest pasta, really yummy fresh pasta made up in Goldsboro in Maine. Our wine suggestions for tonight for the 21s and overs, Puy Fumé, Sancerre, or Alvarinho, either Spanish or Portuguese. They're little higher end wines for the most part. The Foral is only $15. But if you're splurging on lobster, splurge on your wine. It's going to be worth it. So back to the reason that we're all here this afternoon, and that is making macaroni and cheese. If you went on the website, I posted the recipe for the lobster mac and cheese. There's also variations if you wanted to do something different. We have one in the oven that I'll take out shortly that's ham and broccoli. You can do just the mac and cheese without any additions. You can change up your spices. And at the bottom there was a recipe for a non-dairy mac and cheese. I have to be honest, I've never made the recipe. I went online and compared a number of different recipes and it sounded like this would work, but my very deepest apologies if it doesn't work, but hopefully it will. If it doesn't, please feel free to send us some information, some critiques or anything, because we'd be happy to work on that and make it so it works for everybody. So for starters, we're going to go with a heavy saucepan, one that's at least tri-ply, meaning layers of stainless and aluminum on the bottom is the best because it's heavy duty. It's not going to burn really quickly. It's going to give you a nice even heat, which is what we want for this. I've got my lobster ready in a mixing bowl. Just want to eat it like that, but I'm not going to. I cooked my pasta. I put just a tiny bit of oil on it, and I've been stirring it and dropping it on the floor. I've been stirring it to keep it from clumping all together. So if you cooked your pasta a long time ago, just try to break it up a little bit if it's sticking together, because you don't want it all in big clumps when it goes in. So the first things first, I was looking over the recipe and I was measuring stuff out, and a full teaspoon of nutmeg seemed like a lot to me. So I've actually cut this down to half a teaspoon. So it smells so good. So if you want to cut that back a little, I think it'll probably be fine if you do the whole teaspoon, but I think a half a teaspoon would really be better. So we're going to go ahead and melt our butter. My stove was still hot from cooking my pasta, so my butter is actually already melted. So I'll just give you a minute to get that going. So get your butter going if you're cooking along with me, and I'll talk about cheeses. So you can use any kind of cheese for the most part that you want to in your mac and cheese. I usually use some cheddar and then maybe something else. Goat cheese and cheddar is a great combo, especially with the lobster. Tonight we had a little bit of leftover raclette, which we put in there, so that's going to be really good. Gruyere, Emmental, Jack, depending on what your additions are that are going into your mac and cheese. Really anything, as long as it grates up nicely and it melts nicely, it's going to be fabulous. I would stay away from too much Parmesan, although it's a great addition. And I wouldn't do too much like a brie or anything like that. Anything that has the mold rind on it, and make sure you cut that off. But a little bit of those cheeses will add a really nice flavor. The other thing to discuss is pasta. You can use any kind of pasta. Spaghetti and fettuccine are going to be more likely to clump up and not spread as well, but you can certainly use them if that's what you have. Something with holes in it, like this is the conchiglie, which has, it's like a shell, which I think is what that means in Italian. Elbows, which would be your traditional mac and cheese. Anything that the cheese sauce can really get in there and hold on to is a good way a good pasta to use. But you can use bow ties. As I said, you can use fettuccine, linguine, anything that you have on hand. You can use tortellini. You could use ravioli if you wanted to, and then not put any other flavorings in. So I'm going to get my butter warm here, and I have this on a medium heat, and that's all melted up, but I'm going to get it a little warmer, and hopefully you've caught up with your butter. Shouldn't take too long to melt unless it was frozen. And we're going to make what is called a roux, which is fat and flour. So if you're doing the non-dairy version, you're going to be using oil. Again, you want to get it pretty warm, and then we add the flour into that, and the flour cooks into the butter. And we're going to let it cook a little bit together. And then that's going to become the thickener for our cream sauce. So roux is a French word spelled R-O-U-X. And if you want to see, so I'm going to whisk this. I'm going to turn it down to like a medium low. And just going to stir this around. We're going to let the flour cook into the butter. If you don't do that, you get kind of a floury flavor to your bechamel. Bechamel is your cream sauce. And you want it to be really cheesy. You don't want to taste the flour at all. So we're going to let this cook for maybe a minute or so, a couple of minutes, 2, 3. And just constantly stirring. You don't want to leave it just sitting because it can brown. There is such a thing as making a brown roux, but that's not what we want for this purpose. However, if it does get a little bit brown, it's not going to be terrible. It's just going to change your flavor a little bit. So that's nice and bubbly. It's kind of looks like glue or something. And now we're going to add some milk. Before you add your milk, be sure to add it very slowly, a little bit at a time. If you add it all at once, you tend to get clumps, and you aren't going to get those clumps out once it's all mixed. So maybe 1/4 to 1/2 cup at a time, and you can see how quickly that just thickens right up there. So we're just going to keep stirring it and making it nice and smooth. And at some point, we'll feel like we can kind of just pour it in because our clumps are pretty well dissolved at this point. So in goes all of the milk. And I'm going to turn this back up to about a medium high. We don't want it to actually boil, but we do want it to get really hot. And that's when it's going to start thickening. And then we can add the other items. So again, anybody that's not doing lobster mac and cheese, you're still going to do the same process, whether it's the dairy-free with the oil and the flour, and then your soy milk or almond milk or whatever kind of milk you're choosing. With the dairy-free option, you may have to actually bring it up to a boil to get it to thicken, but it should thicken pretty nicely. So it is going to take a couple of minutes here, so be patient with it. because in the end, it's going to be so delicious. Okay. So the white sauce, again, it's called a bechamel. You can turn that into a cheese sauce. You can add different flavorings. You can do all sorts of different stuff with that. You can use a bechamel for moussaka, which is like an eggplant dish, and that usually is a bechamel on the top. Some different seafood dishes will use bechamel, so it's going to be the same basic thing. You're going to make your roux and then add your dairy to it. And we're starting to get hot again now. So you're going to find that this kind of comes together all at once. When you least expect it, it'll suddenly start thickening up a little bit. And I can already see it now. It's to the trained observer, it's just a little bit thicker than milk would be. So I know we're pretty well on our way. And I'm going to go ahead and start adding my spices. So I've got salt. Use the Himalayan pink salt, not for any particular reason except that that's what I had. We've got our ground pepper. We've got our ½ teaspoon of nutmeg. And we've got our onion powder. And we've got, this is a sweet paprika. This is a smoked paprika from Griffin Ridge. It's really nice, but a Hungarian paprika that's not smoked, but you want to use a sweet paprika. You could use a spicy one if you wanted to. That's totally up to you. I think it might be a little overpowering with the lobster, but that is absolutely your choice. Okay, and hopefully everybody's at about the same point I am. I'm going to let this thicken just a little bit more before I add the cheese in. I'm going to make sure that you're getting around the edges of the pan, into the corners, if brown things actually have corners. And it's definitely starting to thicken a little bit. It's not like you could stand a spoon up in it or anything, but it's definitely thicker. And I have turned my stove up almost to high. It's a gas stove, so I have quite a lot of control over it, but I am going to make sure I don't actually bring this to a boil. But I don't know if you can see how thick that's getting now. And I think we're going to add our cheese. So as I said, this is a little bit of raclette, about 1/4 pound of raclette, and then the rest is cheddar. And we're going to just pour that in here. There are a couple of chunks, but mostly it's pretty well grated. And we're just going to let that stir in a little bit. Want to get it nice and melty. Excuse me. Ooh, that looks good. So it should be nice and smooth. Make sure all of your bits of cheese are melted. And then turn the stove off. And I'm going to put this right in to this bowl with my other ingredients. So in my case, I'm doing the lobster. If you're doing other vegetables or other meats or whatever, you want to have them prepped. So we're going to mix them right in with the cheese sauce. And at this point, I'm switching over to my handy dandy favorite spatula here. And we're going to just pour that in there. You do want to make sure that your fillings are already cooked. So like if you're doing bacon, or broccoli, or some kind of vegetable, ground beef, anything like that. You want to make sure that it's cooked before you put it into your mac and cheese. It'll be much more flavorful and much easier to work with, and you'll also make sure that it's fully cooked. Okay, so there's our lobster in our cheese sauce, and here comes our pasta. Pouring that right in there. Oh, that looks good. I'm gonna have to wipe the drool off my camera person's chin. Okay, oh my gosh, that looks so good. So from here, I'm gonna cook mine in a little souffle dish, and then I also have some foil pans because I'm gonna freeze some of it. I didn't want to cook it all. I didn't want to eat it all at once. So I'm gonna do that, and so I'm gonna put a bit in here. And then the panko, and the recipe also calls for 2 cups of panko. It really depends on what size. If you have a low flat, like a Pyrex dish, you may be able to use up all of the 2 cups. Something like this, I'm gonna probably put maybe a half a cup on it of the panko. I like panko because it crisps up really nicely and browns up beautifully, but you can use any kind of breadcrumbs or leave the breadcrumbs off entirely if you prefer. So I'm going to do that with each of my frozen ones, and then I'm going to wrap them nice and tightly in foil and put them into the freezer. They can then come right out, they can go right into the oven frozen, but they'll need to cook a little longer. So instead of about 40 to 45 minutes, they're going to want to cook 60 to 90 minutes. Just make sure that you keep looking at it after about an hour so that you don't burn the top of it. And you can stick a fork or something in to measure how hot it is. So that is our mac and cheese, and let me grab this guy out of the oven. And we did this in a Emile Henry 5-quart oval, and look at that, it's bubbling and it smells amazing. Yeah, that's for supper tonight. So let us know. Thanks for joining us. Let us know if you had any questions, if anything didn't go well. Again, make sure you take pictures of your mac and cheese when it's done, and hopefully it's going to look as yummy as that one. And we'll put you in the running for the drawing for the spatula. And thank you so much. Bon appetit, everybody. Have a great night.